We're joined in studio right now by NDP Ag Critic, Malcolm Allen. You're the MP for Welland. Thanks for joining us. Right now you're on a tour of the province discussing issues that the federal government might be having right now, or that you are certainly perceiving as issues, as they work to bottleneck and impose restrictions and penalties on rail companies that don't transport a set amount of grain. They're setting a threshold here, and you have a big problem with that.
Well, yeah, we do. The issue is it's a little late to the game. This has been issues been going on for months now here in the prairies, as folks know. And it literally isn't any more than what the railroaders said they'd do in the first place. I mean, a month ago, the railroaders said, well, you know, when the spring comes, we'll be able to ratchet back up. We should be able to do 5,500 cars each. We'll get things moving then. And lo and behold, the minister makes an announcement last Friday and says, well, they're going to do 5,500 cars each. The only difference is he says he'll fine them $100,000 a day if they don't get to that level, but he's giving them a month to ramp it up. The big issue with the $100,000 is that goes to the government coffers. Not a nickel will actually go to farmers who are actually waiting to be paid for their grain that sits in storage because they can't actually get it sold. And so that's really a huge problem for farmers who have farms that did well last year. They had a great crop. We're looking forward to great prices for their grain in the fall, and now they're finding they've got no money at all because it's literally sitting in their bins and in some cases sitting in the ground still. And we're now seeing these last couple of days the weather here in Saskatchewan has been rather mild compared to what it's been. And now it's getting wet and soggy. You've got grain sitting on the ground, unfortunately, and that's a huge loss for them.
And the further cause and effect, of course, is that farmers at a loss from last year aren't going to be able to do as much this year with the fields that they have available, which is obviously a bit of an issue.
Well, there's no question. I mean, you're now looking at a problem that starts to compound itself as we go through the year. You know, the numbers are astronomical, a lot larger than we've ever seen before in the sense of what the carryover will be. I'm hearing from grain companies that are saying probably they're going to carry 20 million tons from last year's crop into next year's crop. The normal carry forward would be 5 million tons, so it's 4 times larger. You'll have to sell that next year as well as next year's crop as well. And so what we're seeing is that we're seeing prices get pushed down. You know, the interesting thing is if you look at what a bushel of wheat sells at the Port of Vancouver, it runs about between $11.39 and $11.69 on the Port of Vancouver. Here in the prairies, I talked to a farmer yesterday. He sold his grain yesterday for $4.39. $7 is missing in the system beyond just the regular cap on the freight rate, which is about $55 a car, or $55 a ton, and the $15 to so dollars that would be for handling for the elevator. There's a lot of money per ton being lost somewhere in the system that's not making its way back to farmers.
So you're basically calling this up to this potential penalization of rail companies is more of a hindrance than an actual help. What would the NDP do differently?
Well, we need to see money that goes back to farmers. So if the system is bottlenecked and we're not moving it through the system and there's someone at fault here, if it's the railroaders or the elevator companies or even the port, if there's going to be charges, the charges should be levied against them, and then that money should make its way back to farmers. Because what the elevator company is going to do with demurrage charges, which is a charge for ships sitting at anchor waiting for grain in the Port of Vancouver, those charges go back to the elevating companies. And where do you think they push that? They push that back to the farmer. So the farmer pays for things being late, even though he has no control over that fact that it's late, but he gets no money if his contract isn't being fulfilled. I spoke to a farmer the other day, and actually a number of them, and I asked them how many had contracts that they hadn't filled yet. They had basically for last October, November, and there was a lot of them, probably 80% of the people in the room. And I asked, well, when do your contracts expire? And one farmer said 2 months ago.
Malcolm Allen, thank you very much for joining us today. And it's obviously a very, very hot button issue. Get more information on Malcolm online, and from there you can find out where he's speaking next. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Kevin.